We have our 3 kids. We're busy. They're busy, all the things. And then it was one day, probably 3 years later, and we saw something about fostering, which is nothing that I had ever thought of before. We had kind of popped in and out of like adoption, but we never really thought about fostering. And at this time, our kids are, we're going to be empty nesters in 6 years. And so we went to an initial meeting.
Here's the deal. We're 2 moms and we popped babies out in our 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's hard.
it was hard.
It's also the best thing that's ever happened to either one of us.
Yeah, but now we're moms in our 40s.
In our 40s.
With preschoolers.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
Let's bring the community together of women and let's talk about like real shit. Real life, real women shit.
Yeah, real women shit. Let's do that.
Shit's hard. And also it's funny.
Cheers. Unfiltered.
Because if you want a show, we're a shit show. We're here for you.
Yeah.
We're getting this down. Welcome
all the way from Brighton, Colorado. We have Sara.
Woo! Welcome to Mature-ish Mommas. Oh wait,
Next one.
Yes! You guys, really getting this down. I like how this doesn't fade out. Oh, watch. I can fade it out. Oh my gosh. Put me on the AV team.
You're on. Hired.
Do you guys want me to come AVC your way out of your podcast?
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on. We have a disruption real
We
quick.
have another guest.
Yes.
All the way from the living room.
Wharton Carroll. Shut the door, buddy.
There he is.
Monkey Snizzle. So we say Monkey Snizzle so we know where to edit it. I don't know where we picked that one. And in the last episode, we talked about monkeys so much when I tried to search the word monkey. It was just like, you have 36 results. I'm like, we didn't mess up that much.
Nope. Mm-mm.
So don't tell monkey stories today, Sarah.
Got it.
You can actually if you want.
Yeah, maybe you have some cool ones.
We don't even know. Maybe that's going to be...
I wanted one when I was growing up, always.
Who didn't? Did me?
It's because of Friends,
Yeah. Well, you
Oh.
I think.
Yeah. I wanted one because of Michael Jackson.
Oh. Ooh, okay.
I loved Michael Jackson when I was little.
I know.
And I was like little, 6.
Well, everybody loved him.
Yeah.
He was incredible.
He also loved 6-year-olds, so
Yeah.
that works out. For
I liked to not learn about
Sorry
that
if you-
until later in life, and then I'm just going to go back and revert to the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm not going to 91 and below.
Below.
91 and under.
That's the name of our band. 91 and below.
Not blow.
Okay. Sometimes it starts and then we start over.
Yeah.
I gotta get comfortable.
Take your shoes off.
Yeah, what the
sis.
heck? We
That-
usually don't wear shoes at all.
Yeah, that's this chair is that you like to just, you curl up in it. Yeah. It's the way we like to do things.
Yeah.
Now, since I've got the dick mic, I got to sit like this.
Yeah,
Gotta be
you
proper.
are dicking it up right now for sure. Like, even the way you're sitting is like,
Because I got to get my head on,
I got a dick mic.
I got to get my head, because otherwise,
My
if I-
name's Callie.
if I try to be elegant back here, then I'm echoey. So I got to get up. I got to get up in your business. Biznatch. Okay.
I'll be girly.
Okay. Now we have a well-rounded crew. You guys, we have a guest today.
Yay.
Our dear friend Sara, one of our mature-ish squad leaders is what we're going to call her. She's been here since day one.
Day one, man.
And she's been with us, the whole ride. She was there at our grand opening, one of our biggest supporters and shouter-outers. And also, she has a freaking amazing story. So we're like, what, Sarah, this is last night. Hey, Sarah, can you pop on over tomorrow and just do a podcast real quick?
Hey, you want to hang out on the podcast?
Yeah. You want to hang out? Oh, by the way, here's a headphones and a mic. Let's go.
Yeah. Act normal.
Anything but normal. So I'm going to start off with a little story poo. And then, Sarah, we're just going to talk about you today.
All right.
Yep.
Yay. So I used to own this shake club. We'd sold like healthy shakes and smoothies and teas and stuff like that. And Sarah would come in, we'd all hang out. We do some cardio drumming. Do you miss cardio drumming, Sarah?
I do.
It was amazing.
It was. And we did it in your basement for a while too.
We did. Yeah. Have you ever heard of cardio drumming?
No, but it sounds like something I would love.
It's fun.
1,000,000%. You just get a bucket from like Home Depot, you turn it upside down, you get some drumsticks, and then you get 1 liter, and they stand in the front, and they're just like, and you do squats and turns and lunges and like, I'm not kidding you. By the end of the hour, you are freaking exhausted.
Wait, I thought there was a yoga ball somewhere.
There was. That's what we hit, not the bucket. Thank you. Take the bucket, put a yoga ball on it so that it's not so loud, and now you're hitting the yoga ball.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's like right at your level so that you can it was a lot.
That's cool.
So fun.
That sounds fun.
One of the best booty workouts I feel like I ever got. But you have
Let's start a new one.
Okay.
Come on. People who wants to be a part of cardio drumming.
Cardio
That
drumming.
sounds awesome.
Yeah. It was, maybe we should bring it back summertime drum sesh. Oh, it was so fun. It was so fun.
We should.
So also I had this team of coaches, and we were helping people with their fitness and their health, and we would have these little meetings. So we're having a meeting in the club one day, and Sarah pops through, she grabs her shake, and we're all discussing like what our dreams are and what we want next, because this is what I talk about 98% of the time with everybody. And we're all like having this vision conversation. And as Sarah's walking out, I'm like, hey, Sarah, what is that? What I asked you? What do you want? What's your next dream? What do you want to do next? To which she said,
A baby.
I want babies. And now, granted, there were some challenges with that. Why were there challenges at that time with you having babies? What was your current life situation?
My oldest is from my first marriage, very, very young. Always wanted more. Got remarried to my husband, who also has 2 biological children. We were at that time, I think, married again.
Yeah, you were married.
We were married. All of the 3 big kids lived with us primarily.
How old were they then? Can you even remember? Because I think this was like 6.
Was it 10 years ago? No.
No,
7,
maybe.
So they
7.89 years ago.
They were 11, 12, 13.
Okay.
Yeah. So we wanted to have more babies, but when I was 31, I got diagnosed with a uterine fibroid, and I let it go because it wasn't hurting me, and I didn't want to do anything about it, and then it became an emergency, and when they went to take it, they had to take my uterus as well. So I could no longer have my own babies, but desperately wanted more.
Yeah, that's not surprising to me, because you have the highest pain tolerance. I tell her this continuously of any person that I know, where she'll she's like deathly ill, and she's like, I'm fine, I'm just continuing to do life. Then she goes to the doctors and everything's wrong. So I feel like that's standard.
Yeah, I think when you told me the story, if you don't mind sharing, it was like the size of a soccer ball.
It was. When they first found it was the size of a softball, which they were like, we need to get this out. This is not good. And I was like, it's really not bothering me. Can we just not? Mm-hmm. She's like, okay. But then within 6 months, it was the size of a soccer ball.
Months.
In your body, you had a soccer ball size mass that you were just carrying around.
Mm-hmm. She was like FIFA in there.
Some people want to create their own soccer team. She was her own soccer team. Oh, that a girl.
Yeah, not funny, but also like we just joke around about everything.
Everything.
So you went back because was it hurting finally?
Oh yeah,
okay.
I couldn't sit anymore
because of the soccer ball in your body.
Yeah,
it was kind of compromising some important parts of my body, like
I
my
bet.
bowel and bladder.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so they went in and said, now it's all got to go.
Yeah. So, no, they didn't. They weren't planning on doing a hysterectomy, but when they got in there, it took over basically. So they ended up doing a partial hysterectomy.
Okay.
What was that like to come? Because you were under, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you come out thinking you're having one thing done, and they're like, hey, by the way, we also took your uterus.
Yeah, it was devastating.
I bet.
Yeah, because Chuck and I wanted to have a child together. And like I said, that's all I've ever wanted to be when I grew up as a mom. And so I was like wanting to pop him out left and right. So yeah, it was hard. It took me a while to process for sure.
How'd you process? Like, would you just stages of grief or?
Yeah. And I think, you know, being busy with the three bigs is also super helpful, and just being grateful for them, and, you know, having these two other children in my life that, you know, I didn't bear, and realizing that there are other ways to have kids versus just in my belly.
Yeah.
And so,
It was interesting. So when I asked for this question, I had also had bigs at the time. So we have very similar life situations now, where I think the kids were whatever your ages were. Mine were the same age. So when she's like, "Well, I just want more babies," and like kind of passes through, and I'm like, "But why?" Like, we already have our bigs, and they're nuts, because you're in this like busy stage of parenting, and I was in such a business stage that I was like, "Wow, that's a really interesting answer. How cool for her." And also, I had no idea what was coming for me, so I didn't know I was on the same train as you.
not too far apart either.
No.
So, Sarah, how long after your surgery and the grieving process and stuff did you and Chuck decide to start doing other things?
Let's see. So,
Because I'm sure you sat down with him, and I mean, he was there with you through that whole process.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure he had his own grieving process as well. And so you guys are there to support each other and kind of go through that together, like no one else could ever understand but you two together. And then what? You just started like saying, "Hey, well, let's maybe..."
So I think it was more so like, okay, no, we're happy in this life. We're good. Like, we have our three kids. We're busy. They're busy, all the things. And then it was one day, I don't know, probably 3 years later. Oh, thumbs up.
She gives it. She when she likes a story, she tells you.
3 years later, probably. And we
Okay.
saw something about fostering, which is nothing that I had ever thought of before. We had kind of popped in and out of like adoption, but we never really thought about fostering. And at this time, our kids are, you know, we're going to be empty nesters in 6 years. And so we went to an initial meeting, and that was that. We signed up right there.
What were your expectations at that meeting?
Just to kind of understand what fostering was about.
Yeah.
I didn't really know and realize like how needed it is, even just in our backyard. So we just kind of wanted to understand more about it.
And tell us a little bit about that, like fostering.
So I think what the point that drove us home in it is that there's just such a big need. At any time, even just in Adams County, there's like 1,200 kids that need a home.
Wow.
And they, you know, are asking the questions of if you have a solid marriage and if you have, you know, have had your own kids and blah, blah, blah. And it just felt right. And so we did the initial application to continue. And then that's when all the training came into play. And that's when they, you know, bombard you with everything. You're like, whoa, what did I just do?
I bet. Yeah. From 0 to 100, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Was the room like, were there a bunch of people in your room when you were doing that?
Yeah, and it's so funny because it just felt so right for us that
Yeah.
it was like we were just like firing off questions.
Yeah.
And you guys know Chuck, he's notorious for that, but we were just firing off questions left and right, and everybody else is kind of just like huge, you know, deer in the headlights.
Why am I here? What's happening?
People are kind of dropping out
They're
the
like,
back
thank
door.
God. Yeah. They're like, thank God this guy's asking all these questions, because
I wouldn't have thought of that.
yeah. Homer
Right.
Simpson in the bushes.
Yeah, that's what people were kind of just like.
Yep.
And, you know, a lot of people there have not had children ever before, are desperate to have children, where I feel like we were going into it more of just like we wanted to help kids. Like, truly, that's all we were wanting to do was just help and be that bridge for them, because reunification is the goal in foster care. And so we wanted to, you know, bridge them back to their parents.
Okay.
That's an amazing.
And
yeah,
so
that's amazing.
I think because of that, that's why it was quote unquote easier for us maybe. Because I think a lot of people go into these meetings thinking they're going to get their forever child. And then the reality of like what foster care actually is hits them. And so they're probably like, you know, sad and confused and everything. Whereas we were like, okay, perfect. This is exactly what we're thinking. Like, we have the love, we have the space, you know, we have the capabilities. We want to help these kids.
And in your words and in your experience, what is the reality of foster care?
It's devastating. It's hard. It's an incredibly broken system. Kids get removed from their parents for various reasons. A lot of the times, neglect and substance abuse are number one. And they need people like us to take these kids in and raise them, love them as your own, but then be told what to do. I could go on for days about what a horrible, horrible system we have. But, beauty comes from ashes, and that's where we are. Our whole family is technically from brokenness. So, it can be beautiful, but it is very yucky too.
I just pictured your family as this like amazing little puzzle coming together where you're each your own little pieces that don't make sense on their own, but now you guys are all together and really looking at your whole family and knowing your dynamic of having a child, Chuck having 2 children, and then what we're about to talk about more in depth is you've got this full circle of everyone coming together. It's such a beautiful image.
Which has been fun too with the littles, seeing that, I only had, because there's just a lot of similarities coming from a divorced family and then coming, into foster, because you are not necessarily leaving your parent, but not being with them in the same house for the rest of your life. So it's been fun for them to kind of, be able to talk to the big kids about that and understand a little bit better.
Yeah. A connection without it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did your first foster, how many kids have you fostered? How did that all start? So you got through the training process, which I didn't even realize there was a training process.
It's 28 weeks.
Wow.
I think it was 3 hours every Tuesday night. And at this time, COVID hadn't hit yet, so it was all in person. Except for my traveling husband, we had to sometimes put him on FaceTime or whatever. They made some exceptions for him. And then you have to get a physical, you have to get CPR certified, you have to have a home study, all these things that you would never have to do when you have your own baby. But in order to have somebody else's babies in your home, you have to do all these things. And so we went to that initial meeting the beginning of January, and we got our first foster daughter on June 10th.
So when you talk about these Tuesdays, 3 hours every Tuesday, what happens if you have other children and you don't have childcare for them? Is fostering not an option for you then, or?
Yeah, they unfortunately didn't offer childcare, which was one of the things that we suggested that they try and do.
Because you already have kids, but I want to have more kids, but I can't have more kids and take care of more kids because I have kids.
Right.
And I'm a good mom and I want to be there with them. I don't have not that it's not a bad mom to have somebody watching, but sometimes this is my place. I want to be here with them.
Right. That's and it was during bedtime, 6 to 9.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
So, and thankfully our kids were old enough to stay home by themselves for those hours. But yeah, there was a lot of people that just couldn't do the trainings. And so they did kind of branch out different times. I think they did some Saturdays when there was, more time for people. But yeah, there really was no solution, which is not great.
So is it literally so you get done with your training, you're ready to go, you got the gold star to say, okay, you guys can be foster parents. And then what, they just called you on a Wednesday and they're like, hey, we have somebody.
They have one of those tubes in the house and then a kid just shoots and gets in there. And if you don't like it, you just put the kid back in and they shoot back to the bank.
Like a Willy Wonka situation.
Yep. It's pretty neat.
So it's funny too, because the training is so if this happens, call this person. None of it is about you're about to get a kid and we're going to leave. Bye.
And this kid's not going to be it's going to be probably a challenging child
situation. You're right. Yeah. They've had a pretty hard upbringing up until now. Right. And now they're forced into someone else's home that's probably pretty stable, which is going to be really weird for them.
But who do you call if they're allergic to peanut butter? That answer?
You go to the ER, but then you got to document it, and then you got to call the caseworker and make sure she knows. And it's a whole thing. Even if they get an owie on their knee, you have to take pictures in 3 different angles.
Wow.
and send it because the biological parents could say that you're hurting them.
That
So
would
you
be
just
a
wanna, like, cover
full-time
your butt.
job in my household. For every accident we have, I'd be like, all right, just paparazzi, follow us around. Take a picture of every one of
Well,
these.
that's why I was blessed and lucky, but that's why I quit working, because our first foster daughter had such a weird case. It was a bifurcated case, which means that her parents both had restraining orders against each other, and so they couldn't be in the same room at the same time. So we had to have court hearings separate from each of them. Her visits had to be on separate days so that they didn't cross paths, so that, I mean, it was just a whole huge thing, and there was no time for, I don't know how I would have worked and done it all. So
Yeah.
anyway, she came June 10th. She was 3. On June 11th, she turned 4. So we had a birthday for her, and we got our first real dose of like, okay, I did not birth this child. I have not had them from birth. We took her out because we've always taken our kids out for their first dinner or their birthday dinner, wherever they want to go. She told us she wanted tacos. And so we went to a Mexican restaurant and we ordered her tacos, and she lost her ever-loving mind because those were not tacos. What she wanted was a quesadilla. We figured that out. But, you know, it was, not only did we get that dose of it, just not knowing this child, but also the stares from everybody around you because you're a bad parent or whatever. But she is incredible. We still have a relationship with her. Her parents did amazing things to get her back. She was a wonderful, it's crazy because she was in a separate foster family before us, and they put in their notice on her because she was too hard. And we were like, we got this. And she was hard. She had a lot of trauma, but I think that the reality of the reason she left that other home was that their biological child and her just didn't mesh. And so she was our first experience, and it was a crazy one, but it was a good one for me because I learned real quick how to advocate. I was at the first court hearing, which if anybody ever becomes a foster parent, go to all the court hearings. It's very important. And the judge asked me to stand up and speak. And at this point, the father had not been in her life because he had been in prison. And I was like, okay, Sarah, pull it together. Tell him what you want to tell him, make your point, but don't say something that's going to get you killed in the parking lot.
I was going to ask, like, yeah, it's got to be
because I was terrified.
Yeah,
I bet.
And so, you know, I made my point and it was well received. And then, you know, fast forward a year and a half later when she was back with both of her parents, her dad came over for Thanksgiving dinner. And, you know, we learned so much about them and really just, you know.
So you had invited them into your home?
Oh, yeah.
The parents?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And still to this day, she'll be 11 on June 11th, and she comes over. Yeah, she comes over all the time. Her mom and dad, I made it really...
I can't believe you remembered that was her golden birthday. That was like the beginning of the conversation to now that you remembered her birthday was the 11th.
And she'll be 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way to go, girl.
You know, I just made it clear to them that, you know, use us, call us if there's a problem. Don't let yourself get back in the situation where, you know, she's put back into the system and everything. So we've had a really great relationship with them.
That's amazing. So you're not just supporting their child, you're supporting the whole family.
Oh, yeah. And that's, I mean, you know, it's definitely not what everybody does for sure.
Sure.
But, you know, I always say to myself, like, if my kids were ever to get taken from me, I would have friends or family or like so many people in my life that would take them. So for these parents to get to be at a point in their life where their kids get taken and they have nobody to turn to, I'm like, they need somebody. Clearly, like, they need support. And so we tried to be that support. Chuck felt like he was this father's dad at many times because he's like, I was talking to him like he had never been told any of this in his life. And foster care is such a generational, unfortunate thing that a lot of them really don't have somebody to look up to or to turn to. And so we made that a priority, you know, and our big kids were so supportive of all of it too. So
that's awesome.
My heart is still just back to, like, I'm trying not to lose my shit over here the whole time. I didn't know this would be a cry episode, but like to picture this 3-year-old right before their birthday. Like I picture like and that sucked to be at chemo on his birthday, right? But like to have this like small child, this human that's all of a sudden in this space that even though maybe it's safer and better for them, like they just don't even know what's happening. And then they're going out to dinner with some random family for their birthday. And like our kids are this age right now. And to like imagine them not having us. Like I can't imagine my kid not having me for more than 10 minutes. Like and then you go to the brokenness of the parents. And I didn't mentally prep for today's conversation. Did you see? Like I'm just sitting over here, like just like with tears streaming.
It is sad. It's devastating, and you know, the parents, they don't want this, right? Like that, it's not what they've chosen, and so we tried to, you know, I took as many pictures as I could and sent them. I was always kind of the rogue foster mom that, you know. I said, can I have their phone numbers? That's not allowed. I'm like, okay. So I'd find them on Facebook, friend them on Facebook. I'd get their phone number, you know, because I can't imagine not like you said, for the child, it's hard, but for the mom too, like all of a sudden your child is having their birthday with somebody else. And, you know, like I said, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this because a lot of people are like, that's what they deserve. You know, they did it to themselves. And yes, there are certain cases like child abuse, one thing, but like, you know, neglect, mental health, things that you just can't cope with because you don't have the support, those are different.
Well, and I feel like a lot of times, especially in my experience with substance abuse, is that that's something that is so hard for people to understand who have never experienced that. And they do come from that place of they're choosing this, they deserve this. And it's just, unless you're really close into a situation that you've seen it firsthand, that's really not the case with these people. And I mean, they really are not trying to choose drugs over their kids. But so for you to hold, I think, a space for those parents to still be a parent in some ways or be a part of their life, Sarah, I think that gives them hope that they like, that is like the biggest gift I think you could have given any of those parents at that time, because what a devastating blow to your life. Like you already know how fucked up you are. You already are mentally beating yourself because now you've lost your kid and you probably don't have a job and you don't have any family who supports you. And then here's this angel who's like, I'll take care of your baby and I'll let you be a part of it. And, you know, we're going to make sure we do our best to get her back with you. Like, oh my God, like that little glimmer of hope at the end of like such a dark tunnel, I'm sure was life-changing for people.
And we told, because she was old enough at that time, you know, she was 4. We told her that her parents had to do homework. They had to get their homework done so that she could go home. And so I relayed that to mom and dad also, so that they kind of, you know, her mom especially would like bring homework to her and show her that she was working on it. And it was really easy for her to relate to. And so, you know, just little things like that. Her mom came from foster care. She was adopted at the age of 4 from foster care. And at the time that her daughter was taken from her, her mom was suffering from dementia. And so that was the only support she ever had. You know, so she just didn't have anybody.
Wow. Okay, so
then
moving on.
Yeah. Okay, we're ready.
Yeah. So she's our sweetie. Chuck still says saying goodbye to her once she got reunited was the hardest day. One of the hardest days he's ever had to do, because she made up our names. He's Pops and I'm Momsy. That's still what she calls us to this day.
She's the creator of those?
She's the creator.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Because she said, what do I call you? And I said, well, my name's Sara and that's Chuck, and you can call us whatever you want. You know, you're going to hear the other kids in this home call us mom and dad, but you have a mom and dad. And so she said, but you're more than a Chuck and Sara. This was after a couple weeks. And I said, well, then... So she came up with those.
Pops and Momsy.
Yes.
And they've stuck.
Yeah.
I love that.
And so at court, you know, a really happy, incredible day when her parents got to get her back. She bawled her eyes out because she had never had a daddy. Because like I said, her father was never really in her life. And so Pops was like her. And the family she had been with prior was just a mom. And so he was her person and still is. And she just sobbed. Can I still live with Pops too sometimes?
Oh
And
my gosh.
But she does. She still comes over, spends the nights, all the things. But so when she had been with us a couple months, and like you said, emails just come in all the time. Like, there's a child that's this age that's been through this. It's like their rap sheet. Which is crappy because it's always going to tell you the worst of the worst. And you don't get to like see this child. You just have to make a decision. We did have some hard no's because our big kids, when we did this, we made sure that they were all on board. They all were 100% on board, but they did have some hard no's. And so we vowed we would stick to those for them. So there was certain cases that we would be, and at first I felt bad saying no. But then I realized that like you're doing yourself and this child a favor by saying no, because you know that you don't have the capacity to do what they need. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we would just, emails would come through. Or you would get a phone call, and I got a phone call. I literally was leaving the Platt.
Were you the club?
I don't think you were there.
It's all happening right at there at the
But
shit
yeah,
club.
I know that I did, because I was standing right there and I got a call for a baby.
Yeah.
And I was like, baby, yes.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're ages are creeping up. My husband's like, babies, no, I don't think we want babies.
And because you're sitting here, you're having to satisfy the needs of your husband, yourself, and your 3 older children, and then this adopted, not adopted, your current foster child. That's a lot of needs that you're satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it was a very easy yes for me.
Yeah. But it was a baby.
It was a baby.
In fact, I said yes and then called my husband.
Oh, perfect. I think that was a great move.
Better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Absolutely.
So good job, Sarah.
You did it. Let's just
So
cheers to you for that.
They said, oh, he's just a 32-weeker. And I was like, oh, perfect. Not knowing what that was going to bring into my life. Mm-hmm. He's at the hospital. So the only thing that you have to commit to is that you're going to come to the hospital and meet him, and you'll have to talk to the nurses and get to know what he needs before they'll release him. Perfect. Okay. Yep. So this was actually Chuck's 44th birthday when we got that call. And I was like,
I already said yes.
hi. So I have a
got you a
plan.
baby.
Mm-hmm. And so we went and we met him, and when I was told that he had been there for 35 days by himself.
Wait, did you say 32-weeker or 30?
32-weeker, so he was born 8 weeks early.
Oh, okay. I was like, how old is 32 weeks? My brain was trying to do math and stuff. Okay.
And that was just a guess because Mom had no prenatal care.
Okay. Wait, let's explain it, because I am a little confused, and for people who are with my brain. So he was born in the hospital, and he'd been in that he hasn't left the hospital yet.
Correct. He was still in the NICU.
And he was 8 weeks early, and he was 32 weeks at that point. Is that what that
no,
means?
they were just letting us know that he was born a 32-weeker.
Okay.
And that was like his only downfall.
Because he was
the only
8 weeks early.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's why he was still in the hospital.
And
he was
so
like,
how old was he when you got there?
35 days.
30. So he'd been there for 35 days. Yeah. Okay. It all makes sense now.
So wait. My brain is still 35 days equals about
A month and 5.
So at this point, he's like
a
only
month old.
Yeah.
He's not even gestationally a full term yet.
Right. He's still like a month early.
Uh-huh.
At this point. And he's still hooked up to all kinds of things and has tubes and not.
Happy 44th
Yeah.
birthday.
So he's literally the newborn baby. Yes. Like, it's not like here's a 4-month-old. It's new, straight. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So then I get there
Wait,
and
he's been there. I'm sorry, one more question. He's been there for 35 days with no other. He doesn't have a human.
His mom's gone?
No, he was abandoned.
Okay.
He was born in Wyoming, and then they life flighted him, not even at 24 hours old because he was so sick, to Children's, which is why he became an Adams County case, which is what we were. And so he sat in that little bed for 35 days by himself. And when I held him for the first time, I was like, oh boy, this might be different. This poor little baby has no mama and daddy. They didn't follow him because they thought he was going to DIE anyway.
Oh my gosh.
And so they just let that happen. So
grab your Kleenexes for this episode, guys.
What a way to start your life.
I made it a point at that moment that I was going to be up there with him every single day. And so sweet little, I'm just going to call her A, sweet little A came with me every day. She built a bond with him too. The nurses were so sweet. As you know, in children's, they just, would always have things for her to do. And
this is your current foster baby. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, he was on oxygen. He had a feeding tube. He had all kinds of situations happening. But the reason he couldn't leave is because he wasn't taking a bottle. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be up here to give him at least 2 bottles a day. I can't dedicate my whole life to him because I've got other kids. But they said he would probably be in there until November. And we met him on August 20th and we got out on September 23rd. And the doctor told me that the only reason he was getting out is because he was finally shown love. So, and she's like, he just grew. Like he needed that. He needed a mama. And so that was the beginning of little Bubba Man. He was on oxygen then for 18 months. But then you go through the courts and the this and the that. And while he was still in the hospital, we got word that his birth father was incarcerated. They had found him. And that they found 2 other little kids at home with him who at the time were only 1 and 2.
Oh, wow.
And so they took them into care and asked if we could take them. And of course I wanted to, but my husband's like, oh my gosh, we can't spread ourselves that thin. Right. And so he was incarcerated through the whole, hearing, but, birth mom showed up a couple times and she was always very grateful. I still have a huge place in my heart for her. But in the end, their, addiction and trauma that she too was in foster care almost her whole life. Her parents are addicts. And so, 2.5 years later, that's how this crazy world works. We were able to adopt him. Not like I said, what we had planned. It's funny because when the caseworker came to our house, he was probably about 6 months old at that time. And they ask you from early on, like if you're an adoptive home, just to kind of get the idea if they need to start, because they can kind of see where the case is going. And so they need to understand. And at the exact same time, Chuck said no. And I said yes. And she's like, no. Yes. So you guys need to discuss this one.
You're like, no, we don't. But I'll humor him. We'll have a quick conversation about it. Yeah.
I'll tell him that was a yes.
Yeah.
He misspoke.
He forgot.
It's opposite day for Chuck.
Yes. Yes, it is. So we adopted him at 2.5. But in the rewind about a year, Chuck's like, this is after he had said no. And he's like, I think maybe we should look at adopting another little one so that Miles doesn't grow up alone. And I'm like,
we haven't even said yes to one, and now we're having 2. Yeah. Yeah.
So 16 months apart they are. So we got her when she was 3 months. In the meantime, we had a couple of other kids in there for short stints. Little A had gone home. So then we got JoJo she was 3.5 months. Both kids were not walking. Obviously she wasn't, but Miles didn't walk until he was almost 2. And we had a 2-year-old at the time. So I had 3 littles.
Wow. Watching her come into the club.
3 under 3.
Yeah, that can't walk. That
aren't walking.
She's trying to fling things.
But we cardio drummed it out with all of them. I had one on my belly and one in the car seat. The other
she still worked out. She's like, yeah, I still need time to work out for myself and see my friends. That's a huge
Yes.
Yay.
Woo. Second.
Woo!
I'm working on that. It's fine.
So we adopted him, and then about 1.5 years later, JoJo's adoption was finalized.
How did you know that JoJo was going to be in an adoptable situation?
So it's because I have had, like I said, I advocate for everything. I also talk to everybody. I'm very much in the mindset that if you don't ask, how the worst they're going to do is say no. And so I talked to my caseworker. She was incredible. And I just said, hey, this is what we're thinking. And so she had known this case because she had been with this case since birth. And she knew that the family that this baby was already with wasn't an adoptive option.
Okay.
Now, granted, at 3.5 months old, you shouldn't already be saying, like, this child's going to get adopted, because reunification is still always the goal until it's not.
So had JoJo, sorry to interrupt us. So had JoJo been in foster care since birth as well then? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So we knew this other family, and so we had, like, gotten to visit with her and stuff, and they allowed it, which was crazy for several reasons, but one, it was like 3 days after COVID had hit. And I think that had we not already been planning this out, like, I don't know that we would have gotten her. She probably would have stayed with them for another year, and then they would have, their hearts would have been so invested at that point, they would have been like, okay, yeah. So yeah, it was, her birth mom just wasn't involved at all from the very beginning. And so they kind of, knew that it could potentially go that way. So, but we had to go into receiving her into our home, knowing that there's a possibility that mom could come around and get her back. So yeah, now they're both adopted, and they're crazy wild, and the best thing that's happened to all of us.
Now she has toddlers in her 40s.
Yes, I do. Yes, I
It's
do.
the best thing that ever happened.
It's hard. It is hard.
It is hard.
Real hard.
But it's the best thing that's ever happened.
And, people are always like, you have 5 kids. You look great for 5 kids. I'm like, how about I just look great? Thank you, first of all. And secondly...
Yeah, can people just stop saying that? You look great for, like, oh, you have a 2 you look great for having a 2-year-old. You look great for having...
You look great for your age. You look great for the light in your face. I don't know. Just say, you look great.
Thanks.
Thank you. I had to cut you off on that because that's important. Okay, keep going.
Anyway,
First of all, that
you look great with that top knot on your head right now.
I wish I had one.
I know. I bet you do.
So here you are now, and you walked past us in this shake bar on some random Tuesday afternoon and told the universe, I want a baby. And we all looked at you like we knew your story. That wasn't really a possibility for you to have a baby. And we're like, okay, so where's that going to go? And then fast forward, you've got a family of 5. You fostered how many total babies?
8.
Mm-hmm. You have 2 more added to your family. You've got bigs, you've got littles. Like, sometimes I think just thinking about the power of deciding what you want and telling the universe, because you have to have those conversations. If you wouldn't have had those conversations and really dove into that, you would still, you'd be empty nesting right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I just wasn't, the Lord knew I wasn't ready to be an empty nester, because our oldest left 2 years ago, and I was an absolute shit show. Like, haven't had a panic attack like that, I don't think, ever in my life. Driving away from dropping them off. Like, it was one of the hardest moments as a mom I've ever had. And I was like, thank the good Lord that I have these 2 still at home, because I don't know what I would do with myself.
Yeah.
I really don't.
And now he's like, you're welcome. You'll never empty nest, because those bigs are going to be having babies.
Yep.
And then you're going to have babies all the time forevermore.
Yes.
It's the circle of life.
And I really actually kind of want to foster a teen mom.
Okay.
I know I'm weird, but
Wait. Tell us.
Wait.
So you would have a foster teenager, and you'd also be like a foster grandma, because they would have a baby with them.
Yes,
I know somebody who works with teen moms, so
it's a mutual care situation.
Mutual care
is what it's called, because she is still mom, and you're supposed to just be there guiding her.
You're
to
like
still be
mentoring.
mom.
Your mom mentoring.
There is a lot of mentorship in this whole
love
process.
that.
I've noticed, Chuck to dad, you guys to the kids, you guys to the moms. When are you guys, is there like a timeline for when you're thinking about opening your doors back up to fostering, or?
No, because one thing I will say about foster care is that there's trauma. And so my 2 littles, who are now 6 and 5, have a lot of trauma. Our son has some special needs. And so life is a lot more challenging than we knew it with our other children. So no, we're not at a place right now where, I mean, they're not at a place, I don't think, where we could bring in other kids, and I, need to be.
Yeah, they really need to be on like a routine kind of real stable, safe. They know what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, and that is kind of that age, anyways. I feel like 6 and 4. You said, right?
6 and 5.
6 and 5. Yeah, that feels like an age where you kind of do need that. Like, this is what we do every day, and then on top of having some, PTSD stuff or whatever else is going on. So.
Well, and they, I mean, they say trauma starts in the womb, and I 100% agree with that. Especially also, like, they were both, exposed to many substances in the womb. And so, there's just a lot of things their little bodies are going to be working out for maybe the rest of their lives. I don't know. But they also are starting to really ask more and more and more questions about, like, how they got here and why they're here. And, we just went to an adoption on Monday, and Miles kept saying, they're getting adopted too? And I said, yeah, buddy, they are. And he goes, but do they have a biological mom? And so we, this whole thing, but like I was saying in the beginning with, it kind of all comes back to a circle. Like, I'm able to say that, because we've always told the kids they have a tummy mom. And so I'm able to say that I am Colton's tummy mom, and that, Allie and Jake, Chuck's kids, have a different tummy mom. Miles has a tummy mom. JoJo has a tummy mom. So it just has made it very, like, natural.
Relatable.
For the kids.
Yeah.
Because all of your kids have
different
situation,
like
like a very, really special situation. So they're not any different from their brothers and sisters. And that's pretty cool.
Does his biological mom she wasn't healthy? And I'm like, that's right, buddy. She couldn't care for them. She wasn't healthy enough because, those are the only conversations we have right now. But I also we vowed that we would never make it like this big conversation we had when they were 10 or 12 or whatever. Like, it's just always been a part of their story from the very beginning. And, that's kind of how we were with our big kids too. Like, I was listening to Kinsey's episode, and we parented a lot of like then, and we parent a lot of like now too. Where like our big kids came to us for absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes things that I was like, why are you asking me? Go ask Dad. But Chuck was like, you not always had an answer. And I'm like, I just took a deep breath. And, and so I think, that's kind of just flopped into this in a completely different way. But, so they know their stories from the beginning, but we're going through a lot of that now too. And I think there's going to be hard times as they get older, just feeling like that abandonment. And why they have siblings, and those siblings are with different people and they're not. And,
that's a lot.
Yeah. There's always going to be the challenges that they get to work through, but they're so damn blessed to have an incredible family like yours. Like, they couldn't have landed in a better spot.
No kidding.
Thank you.
If you were to share with some people on here today, what suggestions or tips or things to do or not to do as a potential foster family or an adoption, just because as we kind of like wrap up here, do you have a couple things that you might?
I would say if you are going into fostering, truly to foster, know that you really can change not just the child's life, but the parents' lives as well. If you can keep your heart open to that, that they need just as much support as the child does. Advocate for the kids all day, every day. You are with them 24/7. You're the one that knows the most about them. You're going to get shot down probably lots, but just keep going. And you are going to love these kids. And one of my least favorite things is when somebody says, oh, I could never do that. I would get too attached. And I'm like, well, then you'd be perfect, because that's what these kids need. They need that attachment, and that's not what they've been given. And so just know that, like, your heart's going to break when they leave. Like, it's like a grief. You're basically like, it's a death almost, because there are a couple of kids that went back home that we've never, ever gotten to see again, spoken to again, nothing. But they need it. And, we pray every night hoping that we made an impact on them that's going to help them in their lives further. So just, keep that in the back of your mind. And adoption is beautiful, but, it does come from loss. So remembering that, there's always another part of their story that you have to continue to instill in them, because that's what makes them who they are.
Wow. Wise words.
I know. Can you be my mom?
Have you ever heard Megan and I both be quiet? Ever on the show?
No. Oh my God. No kidding.
Oh,
sorry,
Miss
my
Sara.
nose is not. I mean, I'm just like.
I know. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Wow.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Sorry to bring it all,
No,
serious.
No, that was amazing. I'm sure that there are so many people out there with a similar story or wondering what it would be like because they've been thinking about fostering or adopting that's just wow.
What really impacted me was when you said that you'd be perfect for that. Like, no, I'd get too attached. You're like, do you think I'm not attached? Do you think I'm not loving? Like, that's kind of like almost like a backwards, like they don't mean for it to be an insult, but when you say it like that, like, oh, you'd be perfect because that's what you're supposed to do. I feel like that really encompasses what fostering and adoption is providing love that these babies need, knowing that you'll lose that love, and you're loving from a space of knowing that you will lose. But that's kind of life, isn't it? Like you get to love and live each day knowing that it's not always going to be the same and there will be loss, but you get to choose to continue to love and live each day still.
And I think it's a true testament at how powerful giving love is. Giving your love away. Like, just let it be easy, let it go, let it flow. And just what an amazing thing. Like, just Miles, 1 month, I know.
I just can't stop picturing Bubba not being able to get out of the hospital, and then because you come in. And I remember this time, you guys, she was coming to the club, and every day she's like, I got to go hold the baby. And she would just go, she'd come back. She's like, my heart's filled. Like, I just spent a few hours just with him in my arms. And like the fact that if you see a little human who doesn't receive that love, what it's doing to their lives, and then the reminder of the importance to continuously pour love into our family and our people, because sometimes people forget the power of a hug and an embrace and I love you and the eye contact for all of our humans.
Any human, just say it to a stranger.
Our oldest daughter, I just got off the phone with her and she was like, can you believe I'll be 21? Which is crazy. No, I can't. But she loved so hard and lost so hard with our little bee that we've not ever gotten to see again, that it was a really hard lesson for her, but an incredible one. She went into a very, 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 very dark, deep place, so much so that she had to be hospitalized and all kinds of yucky things happened. However, she is now... She knows, and she will tell this story over and over to everybody, that because she loved so hard and because she lost so hard at that age, it has really sparked her into her passion, which is becoming a psychologist for children in these spaces. Wow. And she is dead set on it. And she would have never gotten there. She wanted to be a teacher. And I just never saw her as a teacher, but we supported that. And now, like, this is 100% where she's supposed to be. And she's always like, it's because... I had to go through such a hard loss. And
sounds like Kinsey, just from the adversity she had to overcome.
That's amazing.
Man, we could talk for 1,800 days with you with all the stories. And this is not like when you said, sorry, this is, I think, exactly what everybody needed to hear today and provides so much insight to you all. So we thank you again.
Thank you.
We love you so much.
We love your guts.
Guts
And
all
we
the way
love
through.
all your baby's guts, and we love Chuck's guts. We love just the best family. I love all their guts.
we got a lot of guts.
We're planning a family sleepover pretty soon here. JoJo planned it. I don't know if you heard that.
JoJo planned it?
We're all
She
going.
did. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we're going to ditch the guys because they're not that cool for sleepovers. But the rest of us, we're doing it.
All the moms are going to sleep in our bed because it's the parent bed.
Okay, I'm down.
That's
I
what she
love
said.
it. I love a sleepover.
She first said Chuck could sleep there too, but then I said, how about Daddy leaves? Yeah, I think he'll go camping.
Good idea.
Bye, Dad.
Go sleep outside somewhere, Dad.
Yeah. Grab yourself a tent. Here's a thermos and see you later. Love you. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you, Sarah, for talking to us about fostering and adoption and just all of the tug of war of heart. And you are a beautiful soul.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Love you.
We love you.
All right, guys. We'll see you next Tuesday. Love you guys.
Love you guys. Bye for now.
One of those.
Thanks for joining, and don't forget to subscribe and, of course, share with your friends. Guys, that's how we impact more lives. All right, see you next time.
Douche.
He's almost 90. He gets a pass.
Not your grandpa. He's not douche. She wasn't
No,
calling him a
I
douche.
wasn't. I was referencing last week's episode. Okay.
Well,
Not till 1, but dang it, you should have told me to stop.
that's okay.
Did you guys hear any of this?
They not like us. They not like us.
Bam!